Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello, and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 132. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm here with a very special new format for the show. So after 2.5 years of interviews and solo shows in this podcast, I am super excited to introduce a new format, which I think is going to be monthly. So you may know Jo Casey from previous episodes of this podcast. I interviewed her for episode 21 of the Socially Holistic podcast, which is what this used to be called, and 121 of the Ready to Bloom podcast. And Jo interviewed me for episodes 31 and 115 of this podcast. Plus, I've been on her show twice, first talking about social media and later talking about coaching. So you can see that we have loads to talk about, and we love having chats about business and coaching and marketing and all stuff business related. So this year I wanted to partner up with someone, a podcasting friend of mine, to do some co-host episodes, and we decided that we would make a great match. So the idea is to have a conversation, much like my regular episodes, around a single topic each time. So today we're going to start out with 6 figures in 6 minutes, or 6 months, or whatever. You know, that big revenue milestone that so many people strive to reach, and which so many marketers promise that we can achieve in no time at all. So is this bullshit? Is this possible? We're going to talk about that. And I'd also love to hear what you think of this new format. So please comment in the show notes or drop me a line on my website and let me know. Now, also, we've got a whole list of topics that we want to discuss on the show that we think are going to be useful and interesting to other women entrepreneurs. But please drop us a note in the comments, or again, send me an email and let us know what you'd like to hear us talking about, because obviously we're most interested in talking about the topics that we know that people are going to be interested in. So thank you very much, and I really hope that you enjoy the show today.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm excited, and I have that kind of slight butterflies feeling of anticipation about, you know, how will this work? Will it work? That type of thing. But yeah, I'm excited.
Me too. So we're here today to talk about 6 figures in 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Earlier today, when I was I really didn't even know how to prepare for this conversation because it's just a business conversation, but I thought I'd go online and do some Googling, and I didn't even know what to Google. So I Googled 6-figure business marketing bullshit. And lots of things came up. Lots of people apparently are not fond of the big, you know, you can make 6 figures in my super fast online program or coaching or whatever. So let's get started.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably fair to say that this isn't a unique conversation. I know we've talked about it kind of, obviously, without recording it. I've talked to other people in the industry. You know, Andrea Owen and I had a conversation on my podcast, and then a conversation on her podcast, which turned into a similar type of thing. So certainly within my industry, which is coaching, it's a hot topic of conversation, and I'm sure it is the same in your industry, which is, you know, a little bit broader than mine. It's what people are talking about, and I think it's this difficult thing of, we want to be able to say to people, yay, you can have big dreams, build big businesses, but let us give you some reality checks, not to put you off and kind of dampen your enthusiasm, but just so that you're prepared. And I think it's totally possible to build a 6-figure business, but it's going to take you longer than, okay, maybe not 6 minutes, but, you know, there are places out there that are legitimately selling courses where it's 3 months or maybe 6 months. And I think that is pretty much bullshit.
Well, it's interesting because when I did my Google search today, a lot of people seem to think that, as you said, yes, it's totally possible. But a lot of people were saying that they thought that 3 years was kind of the mark where you've kind of built up your business, you've got your community, you understand what your ideal clients want, you're clear on your message, because that takes time to communicate what the heck it is that you do. And then, you know, the general consensus was in 3 years, you've got all this foundation stuff, and then you can kind of plan to hit six figures or that kind of thing. So I think that's a big contrast to the whole, do my 4-month or 6-month program or 6-week program and learn how to do six figures.
Yeah, because I mean, the theory is fine, but there are certain things that need to be in place first that are just going to take time to do it. Like, you need an audience in order to be making 100,000 or 200,000 a year in sales. And the other thing is, then, are we talking kind of gross, or are we talking profit? Because they are two totally different things.
Totally.
But in order to be making that kind of level of sales online, it's unlikely that you're going to be doing just kind of one-to-one work, unless you're charging people, like 15,000 each or something, which is a tough call, just out the gate. You need to have a big enough audience, so we know a lot of marketing online is numbers.
Yeah.
And so if you want to, I think it's between 1% and 3% of people on a mailing list are likely to buy from you, and that goes down the higher priced item it is. And so you need a lot of people who have signed up to your newsletter, who trust you enough, who are bought into what you're doing enough, who are clear enough about what it is that you're doing, and who want your product.
Yes.
And even just logistically, that's going to take more than 3 months to do.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, even if you invest massive amounts of money in Facebook ads, build your list through that, build your visibility through that, build your community through that, that's still, and that's going to be a big investment. Yeah, huge. So when I've kind of talked to people within the kind of online world around this, quite often Kimra Luna is somebody who's brought up recently as somebody who has done that. Yeah.
Now I've interviewed Kimra, and
you have?
Yeah, and she is amazing. She is an absolute force of nature. I have genuinely never met anybody with her level of energy. Genuinely. I imagine it's the kind of energy that Tony Robbins or somebody has. She is just phenomenal. And when I spoke to her, she was saying she was spending 12 hours a day in Facebook building up her Facebook community.
Wow.
So that was the one thing about the amount of hours. But the thing is, Kimra didn't actually come from ground zero, from nowhere. She had spent about 3 years learning about marketing. She said, I would just watch YouTube videos all the time, just learning. She had already been a music promoter when she was I think about 18. She'd been a music promoter. She already knew about, how to build great messages, how to promote things, she already had a lot of skills. And she took time out when she had her kids and, life wasn't going so great and her husband was struggling to find work. So yes, she was on welfare. That's the story. She's going from welfare in this, 6-figure business plus in I think it was about 12 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But she had done a huge amount of groundwork before then. She had, like I say, had this enormous amount of energy. So the things like how to craft a message, how to, have a target audience, how to have the kind of the knowledge and the skills and know what to sell and promote to people, she already had that. So I think she's an outlier in this story. I think she's amazing, and I'm not detracting from her at all. But I think, and she's a great example of, yes, this is possible, but she is not your average person. Yeah, she is extraordinary, and that's why we love her story. And I wish people would be taking more of the, wow, that's incredible. I haven't quite got her energy, or I haven't got the things missing. How can I learn from what she's done? So maybe I can model some of it, as in model her route, not model as in rip off her stuff, rather than I will teach you how to do exactly what Kimra Luna did, or why haven't I made my 6 figures in my first 6 months because she did it and I haven't.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the important thing. I mean, you've kind of picked apart some of the elements of Kimra's background. So she was spending 12 hours a day on Facebook building her community. She had business knowledge. She had promotion knowledge. She had, all of these foundation things in place. Those are kind of all of the elements or the ingredients to the Kimra recipe of success. And I think that if people knew all that, and that's the problem, a lot of people aren't as open about how they got to where they are today with their business. And so you can't see all of those ingredients that got them to where they are in their business, 6 figures or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you could see that ingredients list and you could say, oh, okay, right, well, I don't have 12 hours a day to spend on Facebook because I've got kids or whatever, but I can spend, 3 hours a day. And so you've got to kind of think, how will my timeline be adjusted by adjusting the ingredients in this recipe? But again, we can't see that because a lot of people don't talk about that. And a lot of people don't stop to think about, all of the hidden things that have gotten to people to where they are today with their business.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the stories that I love, because it's really easy to fall into the comparisonitis and feel like, how come I'm not at that level,
Yes.
And one of the stories that I love is the fact that Marie Forleo had a job, had a part-time side hustle, sometimes full-time when she first started off, for the first 7 years of her business.
Oh, wow.
I know. And that makes me feel so much better because we look at these people who have these amazing online businesses and we're looking at the end point in their journey, or certainly, their blooming flower, and we're comparing it to our seed, if we're just starting out or we're just a little sapling and we ignore the fact, partly I think because we live in a culture where we want everything to be instant and partly because some of the marketing out there is very, very good and it convinces us that it's possible.
Yes. Marketing is so good these days.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
It is.
It's like people have studied, the pressure points, the pain points of their ideal clients, and they're so good at pushing those buttons.
And I think that kind of leads us maybe onto the darker side of all this, which is there are some total snake oil salespeople out there. There are people who are selling online courses. Well, first of all, there's the people selling the online courses who are saying, follow my blueprint and you will be making, 6 figures. Or follow my blueprint and look how all my clients have made 6 figures now.
Yes.
You will have heard the same stories that I have, I'm sure. And there are some horror stories out there. There are stories of, very high profile people who, when somebody says, this course isn't really delivering what it promises, then get almost, I think one of the quotes was psychotic level abuse that came back from, down the telephone, really kind of aggressive messages left on answer machines and things like that. No refunds offered, courses that weren't ready, people whose testimonials were maybe actually not as clear cut and genuine as they appeared to be. You don't need to dig very, very far into this, and that's the thing that makes me really annoyed because I know what it's like to have no money, as lots of us do. Lots of people go into the online world because they're looking for an escape out of a crappy job, or they're looking to improve the lives of them and their family, or they're looking for more freedom. There's a genuine need and pain there, I think, and there are some people that are kind of just exploiting that.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's like I forget about that because I'm so careful to surround myself by people who are, fabulous and positive and loving and nourishing and supportive and, all of the uplifting people. And it's like I forget that there's this whole dark side, as you called it, of people who just aren't very ethical.
Yeah, I'm like you, and I remember a few months ago, kind of in one of the communities that I'm part of, where there was a real flashpoint, and there was lots and lots of very heated debate going on around this. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I am so lucky, I'm so naive that I haven't come across any of this. And but then, speaking to clients that I have, or speaking to people within my community, people have paid, what I think are serious amounts of money. Like if I'm going to pay £12,000 to work with a coach, I want to know what's their track record. Have they got the skills and the qualifications and the experience, and what have they been able to do for their clients, not just their own income. I've worked with VAs who've worked on some big launches for some, quite prominent people who can give you a very interesting insight to the real numbers. So such as, they technically did make 6 figures on that launch, but they spent,
6 figures.
Yeah. So I think it is about that integrity. It's about authenticity. And I think it's about being able to do your due diligence and trust your gut. If something looks too good to be true, it's the old thing, it probably is. But we want it to be true.
I know. I was just going to say, it's so tempting, though. You know, if you've been struggling to build your business or, you know, things just aren't working quite right and you've got this big dream and this big vision and you just want to help people because you've done your coaching training or your whatever training and you just want to do it. You just want to get people in front of you and coach them. And it's just not happening. So it's so tempting to kind of fall for those things because you just want it to be true.
Exactly. And I've looked at those, you know, some of those sales pages and just thought, okay, it's way outside of my budget. But if I put it on my credit card, I could probably do. And it will pay itself back. Because they'll usually say something like, you know, imagine if you just took on 3 new clients, it's paid for itself. It's like, and yet those things rarely do. Because here's the other thing. There aren't any big secrets in this.
Yeah.
You know,
a lot of the stuff you can get online. I mean, just Googling stuff.
Yeah. So the big thing, the big strategy, the blueprint or whatever it is, very little of it will be new, if any. None of it's going to be new. And I don't know about you, Holly, but what have been the kind of biggest growth, the biggest things that's kind of caused a growth spurt in your business?
My business has been, it's changed so much over the last few years. So I feel like I just kind of keep starting fresh as I have like a new incarnation of my business. But I would say biggest things were when I trained in Psych K, which is the technique I use today with my business. So my previous incarnation of my business was social media marketing, first for authors, then for women entrepreneurs. But I had so much of my own stuff in the way. And so when I trained in this technique to help myself, that was when I started seeing big changes because it was like I was finally able to get out of my own way and take action that before I'd been too scared to take. So that was one thing. But that's very different from what we're talking about. You know, it's not an online course. It's not a mentoring program. It's not a mastermind. It's not anything like that. It's a technique that I use to work with myself. And I did tons of work with myself. Oh my God. I mean, every day I would do, you know, a half an hour of work with myself on my stuff at the end of the workday. All day long, I would just sit there listing, like writing down on my notepad, limiting beliefs as they popped up, you know. I'd go through my to-do list. I've got to do Facebook ads. Oh my God, that scares the crap out of me. So then I'd write that down, you know. So that was one big thing. And then I think another big thing for me was finally finding a coach last year that was totally aligned with me. Well, more than a coach, kind of like a coach mentor, because she would like tell me it wasn't pure coaching. It was coaching plus. I don't know what the heck it was. It was so damn good. But it was the kind of thing where, you know, I got off the first session with her and I was like in love because it was so aligned and everything that she said just felt perfect. And then she even told me that I was her ideal client because I was taking so much action on the stuff. And it was just the two of us were like, oh, it's so lovely. So that was another big thing for me. And that really kind of helped me kickstart a lot of the stuff that I'm putting into place now. So I would say those are the two big things. So it was training in something to do work with myself and finding the right coach, like just perfect fit. And it was something that I hadn't felt before with any of the coaches or business mentors that I'd had. And I've signed up to so many things in the past, that either had a really good sales process or I really loved the person and wanted to work with them, but for one reason or another, stuff wasn't right for me. And this time it just clicked. And now that I've had this perfect coaching relationship, it's like now I understand, like I get what it's like when it clicks and you find the perfect person for you. So those are my two big things. What about you?
So I suppose the biggest thing for me, it's been like a jigsaw. It's almost like I travel along this road. I have this metaphor that it's the closer you can get to your path, the right path for you, the easier it becomes. But that doesn't mean to say it's easy. And so a lot of the work again that I did on myself and having a really good coach, making sure that the stuff I was doing, I was working to my strengths, but also I was doing it for the right reasons and for the point that I wanted to get out of it. So I'm very good at being busy. I'm not so good at being focused and focused on the right thing, because I'm very creative, so I can kind of fly off in different directions. So being able to kind of harness those two things was the kind of the sweet spot for me. But you see, then there was also the things that, well, once I've got the mindset stuff in there, there is strategy that I need to know. You know, even the early things like, what is content? Why have content? Who are my people? What subject am I going to be talking about? What are they wanting? All of that takes time. And there is in my belief anyway, there is no one course, there is no one mentor, there is no one program that will give you that. And you need all of those pieces in place. So you need some knowledge. You need the right kind of mindset, for want of a better word, to kind of be able to get out of your own way and harness your natural abilities. But then you also need a consistent period of time of action.
Yes.
And I think one of the other dangers of these big programs is, I know that psychologically for me, if I've spent money on a program, there's a certain amount that I'll spend, which is a bit kind of, that's a lot of money that it will just kill me to have spent this money and not have taken action on it. But then there's also other programs that I kind of think, that is just so much money. Basically, if I paid that, I want them to guarantee me results. It almost takes the responsibility off me in some ways. And I haven't, I mean, I have to say, I'm talking about it here like, you know, well, I know exactly what those programs are. I could be totally wrong. That, you know, if I paid $20,000 to go and work in somebody's private mastermind, maybe it would just absolutely skyrocket what I did. But I think I would have to be at the right stage in my business.
Yes.
I think you would have to have the foundation firmly in place. You would have to be fully aligned with what you were doing. You would have to have enough knowledge to be able to keep up, to be able to do that. So I'm not saying that those things can't work. But, you know, if you're expected to go from 0 to 6 figures in a matter of months, or even a matter of a year, that is such a huge ask. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's highly improbable.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know anyone who's done it, other than Kim Luna.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't either. I mean, I've got a very good friend of mine that I did my coaching training with 5 years ago. Has a multiple 6-figure business, and she's done it quite fast. But I know exactly how she's done it. And I also know that she's worked crazy, crazy hours that I'm not willing to work. And so it's actually really helped me to have this friend who's had such a successful business and created such a successful business in a fairly short period of time, not a year, but it did take some time. But to see what it's taken her to get there, and to really be aware of the fact that I'm not willing to do that. And I'm aware that it's going to take me longer to get to where she is. And I'm totally fine with that, because in my very first business, I worked absolutely crazy hours, stressed myself out, and just burnt out. And I'm not willing to do that again. So, you know.
That's a really good point. I mean, you know, amongst the people in my circle, I know of at least 3, 4, 5 maybe women who are 6 figures and multiple 6 figures. But the minimum it took them was 4 years full time. Yeah. I mean, these are coaches, so I do think it takes a bit longer if you're doing kind of coaching, life coaching, holistic practitioner and things like that, because it's less tangible for people. You have it's less urgent a lot of times. I mean, one thing is providing business services, because that's going to, you know, people can get a financial return on their investment. But for personal stuff, life coaching, like, you're probably not going to see a financial return on your investment. It's going to be, you're going to be happier, you're going to be more fulfilled, whatever. But it can be harder to get people to invest, you know, the big bucks in that. Yeah, absolutely. And it also takes, you have to be a very savvy marketer to be able to market life coaching services effectively. You know, you need to know what your niche is. You need to be able to know what your message is, know the difference between, you know, giving a message, well, wouldn't this be lovely if you could do this? And everyone kind of goes, yeah, that would be really lovely, but I'm not giving my PayPal details for it. Or, you know, creating that kind of urgency where people are kind of go, I absolutely have to invest in that.
Yeah.
And so I think that the journey with that is longer as well. But yeah, I know these people who have done it. And, you know, I know the route that they've taken, and I also know how much work it's gone in. has gone into it. Mm-hmm. I think there's an element of these big, I'll show you to make six figures in, 6 minutes or whatever, that there's an element of, and it's going to be so easy. And I think that's one of the other things that obviously the marketing is going to say, I imagine what it'll be like if you can have the freedom to just work, a few hours a day from your beach house. And, we all want that. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah.
But the reality is that, it's just, it's some harder work. And that's great if you love the work. Mm-hmm. And you're willing to put it in. But I just think we're being sold a bill of goods. And so I don't know about you, but I end up speaking to a lot of people who feel like they're great big failures because they're not turning a profit, and they're like 6 months into their business. Like, I didn't turn a profit until I was in the second year of my business.
Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah, it does. And I guess my view is that, well, if you want something sustainable, if you want something that's going to be, that's going to be worth doing from a life point of view. So I could make more money if I went back to doing executive coaching and I was, traveling down to the City of London and things like that. But, I've got 2 kids. Yeah. And I quite like my husband and I like seeing him. I like my family. And I don't want that life. I had that type of life before, and that's not why I set up my business. And that there are times when I'm so busy in my business that I almost need to remind myself of, hang on a minute. This isn't why you're doing this. You're not doing this just to get the thing out the door, or you're doing this because you want more balance and you want to be doing something that feels more meaningful.
And you want a lifestyle that you want. I mean, I'm sure we could all, or probably not all, but most of us could, get that money in if we were willing to do the things that a lot of us aren't willing to do, like working 14-hour days and 7 days a week. And,
But I still don't think we could do it in 6 minutes or 3 months or even 6 months. Stories like John Lee Dumas took him 7 months of doing daily podcasts before he even thought about monetizing.
And he had interviewed some big names from the start too.
Absolutely. And there's somebody else who I know, Mark Mulwiney. He also does a daily podcast. He said it took him about the same time before he started getting coaching clients from it. It's like, well, you're doing that every day. You have to have tenacity in this. Yes. And you look at John Lee Dumas now and you just kind of go, oh my God, it's amazing. Yeah, who wouldn't want to work with him? But he said he had one listener on his first show. Just one. He said, I know him by name. I know him personally, because I emailed him and said, there you go, dude, thanks for listening. So everyone starts off with 0 blog readers, 0 podcast listeners, and you've got to give yourself time to grow.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about some of the foundation stuff that maybe some of the new people who are new to business aren't aware of. And we've touched on this already. But I was reading this blog post this morning from Rebecca Tracy from Uncaged Life.
Yeah.
And she wrote this great post on doing the math on the things you need to get to 6 figures. And so from her perspective, she says, you've got to first get clear on your business idea, and that can take a year. And I totally agree with that because it takes time to get clear on what it is that you're good at, how it is that you're good at helping people, who it is that you're good at helping. And you can only get that from doing the work and seeing the clients.
Yes, absolutely. This is the other
Even if
thing.
it's free clients.
Yes. The other thing is that the people who maybe they've done the training or they've decided they're going to set up their business, and then they spent ages designing their logo and they've got incorporated or they've got, a limited company or whatever, but they're not actually doing any client work because nobody's coming in the door, and they're in this catch-22 then of almost trying to, well, I think maybe people will want this, but you just get out there and you do the work, even if initially you're doing it for free. And I'm a big fan of doing free coaching sessions when you're starting out. Yeah. To just get as much client experience under your belt. And I even have a whole kind of strategy and a whole kind of mini free course. I teach people how to do this because it's so valuable. You can't know what you're good at until you actually do it. Something like coaching, something like, being a holistic practitioner or something like that. It's a bit like learning to swim from reading a book. At some point, you just got to get in the water.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that being an entrepreneur. Sorry, I'm talking over you.
No, that's fine. And I started to talk over you because I'm so excited about this. No, because I just saw something on Facebook today from a friend of mine, Julia Bernard Thompson, who's a coach that works with people creating, kind of high-end packages and things. And she said that every year at the beginning of the year, she offers, I think it was 3 coaching sessions for $150 or 150 pounds or something like that. And she said she always gets messages from people saying, oh my God, you're crazy. Why do you do this? And she said, this is her way of getting in touch with new people who are maybe thinking about working with her, but couldn't afford to do it, didn't have the money, whatever. And it's her way of reconnecting with the stuff that people want and need and kind of getting lots of information. I think she said she did like 2 days of like full on coaching of, these kinds of sessions. And it's been so amazing and useful to her because she's got that information again, because of course your business changes. Yeah. So the stuff that your clients needed last year might have evolved and it's different this year.
Absolutely. And the market changes and the industry changes. And it's just a great way to reinvigorate your business. Any other industry, they would take a product and market test it.
Yeah.
And yet we forget to do that in, we do kind of online service-based stuff. So I'm a big fan of that. If you like do a heavily discounted session, or you offer laser sessions, or you offer, I don't know, kind of group laser sessions. So you have, once a month, people from your community can dial in and ask you questions, ask your expertise, anything like that. Then you get all that information about what is it people want. Mm-hmm. Because I know I've shared this story before, certainly with my people. I don't know if I've shared it with yours, but when I first switched to working with coaches, I was convinced I knew what they wanted, which would be confidence. They would want to feel confident to go out there and sell their coaching services. That would be what I would be like a life coach for life coaches. And so I did this block of 38 free hour-long sessions.
Wow.
I did them over a course of about 3 weeks. And it was brilliant because confidence came up. But far and away, the biggest thing most people wanted was, how do I get more clients? Mm-hmm. Because if you're not getting more clients, then you haven't really got a business.
Yeah.
And then it was, well, how do I do that? But, oh God, I hate all of that kind of really sleazy online marketing stuff. Is there a way that I can do it without that? Because I hate putting myself out there. Mm-hmm. So I knew what my people wanted. Mm-hmm. And from then I was able to refine my message and be really clear on the outcomes. It was invaluable because I swear if I wouldn't still be here now if I'd gone out just marketing it for, well, I think they probably want confidence because I didn't have that deep understanding of what they really meant by, confidence. And that comes up. I still do a lot of life coaching as part of my sessions, but I also do strategy. because I'm giving people what they want.
Yes. And you know that because you did those 38 sessions.
Exactly. So I think Rebecca is absolutely spot on, and she has this really good, almost like roadmap. What if she was doing it again? What she would do in the first kind of 3 months or something? Yeah, really interesting read. And she has a lot of opinions on the whole kind of. I think she did a blog post called "How to Tell If Your Business Coach is Full of Shit."
Yes, I've seen that as well. Yes,
and that was a very heated debate. There was that ruffled a lot of feathers, and really interestingly, there was a lot of people within the coaching community assumed she was talking about them, even though she wasn't.
Oh.
Because I have some inside information. I know the people who she was. And it was more of an amalgamation of some of the tactics that kind of go on in the industry. But yeah, how interesting is that? There were quite a few people got offended, and she was like, it was nothing to do with them. I hadn't even heard of that one.
But if it pushed your buttons, there might be a reason for that.
Exactly. And so within coaching, there is a reputational issue, I think. That what we don't want is, and same as online, but I think because online is broader, if we talk about kind of service-based professionals online or people who have online stores, I think it's broader. We're all much more used to buying products and services online, but coaching in particular is still a relatively new industry. It's still not regulated. And so it's if you've got these people who are saying, well, life coaching is a load of bullshit, then that makes it even harder for the genuine, really good life coaches out there. So we don't want that. That's why we need to, because there was this huge debate. I mean, we're going to go off on a tangent a little bit here, but about, I just don't understand why it all has to be so negative. Your negative attitude, why can't you just, and it's like, no, this isn't just about being negative about this. This isn't just like, I don't like your style. This is about sometimes, particularly what Rebecca was talking about in hers, was people lying.
Yeah.
People, who were selling and charging big tickets for courses that then weren't delivered. Mm-hmm. That's kind of fraud. And people ripping each other off.
Oh, yes, she had that person copy her.
Yes.
Word for word. Oh my God. I came across that months ago when it happened, or whenever that was.
Yeah.
And then I came across it again today. And I just thought, what was that woman thinking? She copied word for word all of her stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, how do people think they can get away with this? I mean, the online world, it's so easy to find out if someone's being authentic and, coming from a place of integrity.
Yeah, and my brain is that kind of, I don't know, but that woman had her own justifications for it, and I don't want to go in. She did. But there was an awful lot of people who maybe in her community or who were in kind of the mindset of that, well, Rebecca Tracy was just being really negative. And shouldn't women be supporting each other? And we don't need to be doing each other down and save your negative engine. You just really kind of bad vibrations. And when you're vibrating at a higher level, I kind of thought, no. Do not use what is some really authentic, genuine, heartfelt theories of how we should all behave in the world as an excuse for just bad behavior.
Yeah, because I totally agree with that. I mean, I totally agree that we need to support each other and be positive and all that fabulous stuff, but that's totally different from calling people out for not being ethical.
Yes, and I think that's the distinction that needs to be made. So it's a tricky line to walk sometimes, because I don't want to be the Debbie Downer saying, this is going to take you a lot longer than, 6 months to be able to build your six-figure. No, I don't want to be that wet blanket for people. But at the same time, I want to be able to call it out where it's like, no, that's fraud. Or if you're going to charge people $12,000 or $15,000 for a course, be damn sure that course is ready. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if it's not ready, then there's something wrong with that. And we need to redress. And that's not about, in the sisterhood not supporting each other. That's just about bad behavior.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's interesting, that whole thing about the course not being ready, because when I created my very first online course, which I think was 2012-ish, my friend, who's also a coach, said to me, you sell it first and then you create it, because then you know that people want it, need it, and are willing to pay for it. I was like, great. So from week to week, I was creating this course, and it actually ended up being a very different course from what I had originally started to thought of, because I got to know the people on the course. I got to know what they needed, and what they needed was more basic than what I thought that they needed. So I was able to tweak it along the way, but I always delivered that damn thing. I mean,
that's the important bit.
I did not do the work. Like, it was a lot of work. It was so much work, but I did it every week, and I showed up, and I did the videos, and I did the thing. You know,
that's the difference. I mean, the first course that I ever bought online was this one. She's still around, actually. She's in the UK now. I won't name her, because this is going back a long time. It's going like 10, 12 years ago. And she had this online course about how to build your online business. And she was one of the proponents of, where you build the planes you're flying it, which can work really well. I have to say, I'm a bit too much of a control freak. So I like to at least be 3 or 4. So when I did my first online course, I beta tested it, but I had all of the modules kind of sketched out and most of them kind of designed, just because that's the way I am. Perfectionist. I needed a kick to get out the door. And then kind of I refined it as I was going along, and kind of each evolution. But this one was a big proponent of that, and I totally get it. But I kind of logged in on that first, and I paid what at the time for me was a lot of money. It was £1,500. Actually, wow. I think it was going to be more than that. I think it was something like £1,500 each month.
Oh.
6 months or so, because they were going to personally mentor you through it and all of that. And it was how to set up an online business. It was a lot of money. And I put on my credit card. It was the one time that I ever did anything like this. And so when I got into the members area of this thing, there was one module there, which was things like how to register a domain name. And I already knew how to do that. So I emailed her and said, where's the second module? And she said, well, it's not ready. It will be up in a few days. So and there was meant to be, you know, I think 8 or 10 modules, and then there was meant to be transcripts for all of them and audios for all of them. And there was a really crappy kind of PowerPoint in there that, and a little kind of video in there. And so I emailed her very, very politely and said, well, I'm past that, and I would really like the other modules. And I didn't get a reply from her. So I emailed again and said, I don't think, because by this point I'd got buyer's remorse and was just like, oh, no, I want my money back. So I asked for a refund. And that day, or I think the next day, on her blog, she wrote this big diatribe about, you know, well, I've been reading for how important it is to be authentic online. So I'm just going to let rip with this one. Yesterday, I had a client, and she was basically, her blog post was about a client who had contacted her complaining about a course, even though they'd been very clear that the course was being built as it was going on. She's a big proponent of that, and this is why. And that she was having a really bad week, and, you know, all of these things, and clients just don't understand how much work goes into this thing. And it was taking zero responsibility for anything. I mean, I'll be clear, I don't know it was about me. It could well have been another client who was complaining about it. But it was so passive-aggressive. It was so like, whoa! It was such atrocious customer service that I cancelled my payments immediately. I raised an issue through PayPal. Or was it through PayPal? I think I paid via credit card through PayPal or something to get my money back. And it left a really bad taste in my mouth. But it was a great lesson. Yeah. Great lesson in the end.
What not to do.
What not to do. Yeah, so I think that's why I'm particularly kind of, no, I need all of my modules kind of there as I go forward. But apparently there was the one Rebecca Tracy was talking about was a course that just wasn't delivered. And the woman wrote a very, I think quite personal, I'm so sorry, all of these things went wrong. But I think the issue was that she didn't offer refunds to people. You know, and life happens, and you know, if things go wrong, it's about having integrity. So I think this whole thing is about going into stuff with your eyes open, doing your due diligence, and, you know, checking out things like, so are the people who've given this person testimonials, are they real people for a start? Because it's illegal if they're not. And have a look at their websites, and if it's a big ticket item, even contacting those people and just say, would you mind just telling me what your experience of being on that program? And I you know, if somebody contacted me, which occasionally that they do if they're considering working with me, and say, well, can you put me in touch with other past clients, I'm more than happy to do that, because you know, they're kind of they're better salespeople for me than I am.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's about going into it with your eyes open, and being realistic.
Yeah, and bringing it back to the whole 6 figures in 6 minutes thing, it's about going into your goals with your eyes open, because you can totally do it. That's a nice big milestone, but you need to have, you know, a plan and time to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are blueprints and roadmaps out there. And they'll all probably tell you similar things.
Yeah.
You know, be really clear on your message and what services and what business you have. Who is your ideal client? Because that then kind of refines it and helps you to focus even further. Be able to go out there and find those clients, and then have ways to either start having conversations with them and provide, you know, kind of low barrier entry products or services for them so they can get a taste of you. And that might be freebies, that might be, you know, I don't know, if you have a shop or a store or something, you give away samples and what have you, and start to build an audience and allow people to develop that know, like, and trust. You build that audience to a point where you have got enough people to, you know, so that 1 to 3% of people buying from you will sustain you and be making you the 6 figures. And that's what people like Rebecca Tracy have done. That's what people like Andrea Owen have done, and, you know, all the other people who have these amazing, really kind of integrity-filled businesses online have done. But they didn't do it overnight.
Yeah. And they didn't do it in 6 minutes.
They definitely didn't do it in 6 minutes. No.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I think this was really fun to explore, and I hope it was useful to our listeners. Because, as we've said, it can be so easy to kind of get caught up in the magic of marketing and good copywriting. And, we need to remember that there's a structure, there's a system, and lots of foundations that need to go into place before you can kind of hit that 6-figure goal for your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it is totally doable. It's just going to take you a bit of time. And I think if you can go in with that, knowing what the stages are, it becomes a lot easier.
And that way you're not disappointing yourself. If every year you're setting that goal for yourself, I'm going to make £100,000. That's the
£100, yeah.
£100,000 or $100,000 or euros or whatever your currency is in your business. And if you're setting that year after year and you're not hitting it, then that's disappointing. It can kind of drag you down from your business and make you feel bad. So I think it's important to just know what needs to be in place before you can even think about hitting that milestone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think we can wrap it up there.
I think so. So hopefully people out there have enjoyed kind of eavesdropping, listening in on the conversation. As we said, this is something new that we're trying, so we would love your feedback on it. Did you think we were just talking a load of crap? Do you violently disagree with us? Do you were there points that we missed, that we failed to mention? But also, what other subjects would you like us to discuss and give our opinions on? Let us know. So you can contact me at joe@joecasey.com, and Holly, you're at?
Holly at readytobloom.com.
That is awesome.
Yay.
Thank you so much, Holly Wharton. This was really good fun.
Yes, it was. And we've got new episodes planned very soon.
We have. We've got
more
some,
juicy topics.
Yeah. We've got some topics that actually scare us a little bit. So can we really talk about that? So yeah, give us your suggestions and let us know what you think.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/132 for the show notes on this episode. And remember, we would love to hear what you think of this new format. So please comment and let me know, either in the show notes or on the contact form on my website. And if you have any ideas of topics that you would like us to discuss in future episodes, please either drop us a note in the comments or let us know by email what you would like to hear us talking about. So thank you very, very much, and have a good day.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's ready, 2, bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.